I guess let's start now. As in when people come along, maybe I could guide them. Time was 11. Okay. So today, am I audible? First.
Yes,
Yeah, okay. So we had to learn Flutter. This is the Flutter Festival, and welcome you all. How's the morning been? It's 11. I'm pretty sure you all were enjoying the holiday and everything. But let's get right onto it. We have to install Flutter first to start working on Flutter and learning Flutter. So the first thing we need to know is that Flutter relies on a full installation of Android Studio to supply its Android platform dependencies. So Flutter on its own is a software development kit, and it's just one part, which is part of the UI, front end UI. It helps bending in that, which is what it is very popular for. Its beautiful design and everything. So first we need to have to install Android Studio. So get the stable version of Android Studio. Okay, please don't experiment with the unstable ones or the this. It is much this. Mine might be showing Linux, but I want you all to install. You all mostly must be using Windows, so install the Windows one, and we will be needing is Git. Okay, uh, you all might be surprised on why Git is required for this, but maybe in future when you all decide that you all don't want to stick to just one version of Flutter, or you all have to work on like different versions of Flutter, because this will keep updating, so you don't want to lose track of any projects that happen to be very old or very new to be affected based on how your setup is. So first we're going to have to install Android Studio. I really hope you all have this. So how many of you all have Android Studio already on your, just show a quick raise of hands. Okay. Oh, wow. Rest of them you all have to install Android Studio definitely, because it is a heavy application, I'm sure, but Android Studio is something which is very bare minimum for this. In fact, entire of Flutter is running on this. Maybe you all don't need to use Android Studio, what do you say, for writing the Flutter code on its own. That you could definitely do using other IDEs. Like I personally use Visual Studio Code. Yeah, okay. If you all are comfortable with this, we am going to give you a little this extra. You are primarily supposed to use Android, given that this is a Google developer thing. But hey, we have to look into making things easy for us. So Visual Studio Code, it's an excellent IDE. I really hope if you all could use this as well. Android, on the other hand, is pretty heavy. I don't know how many of y'all would have such heavy resources for. I myself, yeah, I could run it, but I choose to run it on VS Code. Well, and finally, we will be installing Flutter in the Android Studio. So let's see how we are going to be doing that. First, we are going to have to install this. So this, I'm going to just put it in the chat box and go ahead, and those who don't have, please go ahead and install. Uh, yeah, y'all could, what do you say? Keep your hands down right now. Okay. Now, this setup is going to take a while. For those who have they installed already Android Studio, they are well aware that it is something about 15 to 20 minutes maybe more depending on what are your configurations, what is your computer's configuration. But once you have that installed, the next thing you're going to have to install is Git. I'm going to put this thing in the chat as well. And now once you have this is pretty light. Okay, this is how many of you all know what Git is? Okay, I'm pretty sure y'all are not very new to Git or anything. Y'all must be using Git a lot for, not Git a lot, but might have used Git sometime in the past. So, okay, it's more like a version control system, to be very, what you would say, to describe it quite perfectly, that its primary use is to shift between versions of code and configurations and other things. Like you are working on a certain code and you have figured out, like you are in a much later stage of code, and at some point of time you have decided like maybe the code I have written could have been written in, can be written in different fashions. So you create certain branches, and what do you say, you can split out your code. You could see how it works differently in both ways, and Git is pretty good. Any coder would definitely, any developer in fact, uh, would be definitely uses Git in some way or the other. And let's look at the command for installing Flutter. Don't worry, for those whose installation is ongoing, you all could always refer to this documentation and go ahead and install it. It's not much. Okay, here it says that you should download this bundle and stuff, but I personally say that you don't really need to have that. See, it says that if you have installed if you don't want to install a fixed version of the bundle, you can skip these two steps and run this command. Okay, so you would typically go to your C drive, okay, not into your program files. Like this is where you would install, this is where it is automatically going to get installed if you do it via this bundle. If you go via your Explorer, let me show you, I have Windows as well. Yeah, like see, we usually have these program files, and program files here you are wanting to have to create a new folder. Right now I can't because I'm on Linux, but here you create the src folder and you run this command inside it, git clone, and you will have Flutter in your system. Okay, and later on we could see how perfectly we want to do it. You will have to navigate, you will have to tell your environment that where Dart exactly is where Flutter is, and you will have to run Flutter Doctor once you have finished cloning. It's pretty fast. Installing Flutter is not a lengthy process or anything. It might be a very small development kit. I don't know. Maybe it would be probably what, 500 MB. 500 MB is not that big. We install much bigger stuff. And while today we are going to be looking into Dart, okay, till now we have found out what Flutter is, what Dart is in the info session if you all sat for it. So basically Dart is the programming language, what do you say, on which Flutter runs. Okay, it's Google's, it's developed by Google. It's clean language for those who don't have, what do you say, any knowledge about what are the programming languages and how programming languages work. It's very clean. Don't worry. If you have any knowledge about JavaScript, for those who have knowledge about JavaScript, that is going to be super easy, and you all will have no time at all learning these things. And as for those even in spite of knowing JavaScript, in the end we have to code on Dart. So we have to get used to Dart. So let's jump right into it. Now, since installations are going on, this is something we all can do at the same time. And I want you all to go to dartpad.dev. Okay, I'm going to put this in the chat as well. I want every one of us to open.
Chat is not accessible.
I'm sorry.
The chat is not accessible.
The chat is not accessible. Let me look. Hold on.
Yes.
Hello, Rohit.
Okay, I think uh, there are some issues regarding the chat access. Uh, how well, these are pretty simple links. Maybe if you all type Dart itself, it would be feasible. Yeah, someone was saying something. Okay, let's go back to where we were.
हाँ हेलो रोहित, एक काम करो, सब लिंक्स व्हाट्सएप में डाल देना फ्लटर फेस्टिवल वाले.
Yeah, y'all, please access. Via Okay, so now that that is out of the way, anyway, this is the other links may not be that the other links are important, but this link is not that difficult to find. You just have to write dartpad on Google, and the first one is what we are looking to work on. So for anyone who does not have access of WhatsApp on their laptop, it's easy to navigate to this site. It's dartpad.dev. Um, and this is all the URL that you need. And for those who have any experience with coding, if you look at this code, it looks very similar to something in JavaScript or something. Our semicolon is here, our void main with the brackets and stuff. It's like the good old days kind of thing. So let's start. Okay, this is like a boilerplate they have already given. Dart is very clean. It's very clean language. If you are what do you say? If you look in comparison to other languages, like we have used C++, we have used Java, we have used what up till now. What all languages are you all familiar with? Python. Python is readable, and this is an extremely what do you say, focused language. Dart had a purpose when it was created. Like you would always say that what is so bad in the other language, what was it missing, why do you especially need a different language to again start over with, why not the existing languages? But there is certain things that Dart has that other doesn't. One is that it is an object-oriented programming language, purely object-oriented programming language. So let's look at certain things. Dart is actually statically typed language, means that you are going to have to explicitly mention that what data type it belongs to. And this is useful when you are creating objects and models. Your database is another thing. Your database is not very flexible in any kind, all kinds of regards. Like if you were to say that, yeah, okay, fine, I'm going to keep a variable and it could have except integer, it's going to have a string, everything. It is going to have anything and everything. I'm not going to look at what is the what do you say, this behind it, uh, data type behind it. It could be an integer, string, boolean. I'm not going to specify it. Okay, I'm going to let the compiler understand it, and it's his problem to see if it is working or not. So if you were to leave it to like that, like in Python, you are going to have an environment which is a bit confused about, okay, not even your environment, actually your environment might understand, your database is going to be a bit confused, like what is the kind of bytes and what is the kind of data I'm having to store here. Like it could come in as an integer and suddenly, oh, it's a string. So that is something which we have to be very particular and be aware what kind of thing we are sending to the database or the backend or anything. Like this is just front end. You have to send more data to backend, process that data, and only that way is the data useful. So let's look at some basic things like what is void main? Does anyone can unmute and say what is void main? It's a very straightforward thing. We have done this like I don't know how many times. Uh, Even the first year students are, I think, learning C. So y'all are also aware what this main function is. Okay,
It will
on
not
chat,
return any value.
yeah, void is definitely that one thing that it won't return any value. And what is main?
It's a function.
So what's so special about main? Why in boilerplate do we always say C, C++, everything, int main, void main, public static void main in Java, in even in Python, you just go def main. what is so special about main? So when you are compiling a language, it looks for a function to run first. So main is the function that it always redirects to first. So main being the function here is always going to be called. So when I do run, you could create any uh, other function. You could say void person, but it is always going to run main. That is what you would say the way most languages are built. Like there's no rhyme or reason as to why your code has to run because of void main, but uh, that is how they have languages have been created, because you need somewhere to start, right? And your compiler chooses main as the keyword for the function that it is going to start running code with. Okay, let's look at some code and see how it works. So we have age as a string and an integer. So let's see what can we define this as. Let's say age is 30, and here when we say it is 30, we are going to have to define it with single quotes or double quotes. Now this way you are able to define a value for a string. Okay, now when we print age, print age 1, it's about to return the same value. Yeah, so 30. 30. The only difference is that this is a string, but you don't get to see anything on the console, right? But maybe for our views, we are just having to see a console. When this data is being sent, it knows that it is in this format. Okay, it knows that it is a string, whether it is a string or whether it is an integer, because for us we communicate in this way, but the computers, the backend, the frameworks, they communicate in this language. This is their language. They know that age for them is just a variable name, what actually it is a string. So now you can try stuff like age 1, we can keep it something like 27, and this will give an error because yeah. So quickly we got an error right here that a value of type int can't be assigned to the variable of type string. And this error might have pissed off a lot of us when we were starting to code. Like, why am I not having that liberty to switch between codes and stuff, between data types and stuff? Like in Python, you could do it very freely. Like Python doesn't care. You could give it like 20 different data types and like it'll be happy. It'll be like, yeah, definitely I can do all of these. So it's a much readable language. It's much simpler language. Not like Dart does not have provisions for it, but like something you could say, like, let's see, we have a data type called dynamic. So dynamic is another data type which is there, and so here you can do whatever you want. This could be, what you would say, 30 here, then you get, let's get rid of these. Then you would say that age 2 is a string. Let's see. Print it. Let's get rid of this. Yeah. So now one variable, different data types. Now it's a string. You can keep on doing stuff. There is no limit to how much. Like now it is a boolean. So now if you want to type print age 2, it's going to print that as well. Now this is not even enveloped in a string, so this is definitely a boolean. Let's just a moment. Yeah, so see, we have something called as bool here. Boolean has just two values. I'm sure you all are well aware about this data type. So we won't have much use for dynamic, but when we do, I will definitely tell you all what is the highlight of this thing. So next thing that comes into this is classes. So we have different kind of classes. So what is a class? Like y'all must be, what do you say, knowing. Who all does know Java here? Okay, show me a quick raise of hands. One, two, three, four. Okay, yeah, y'all do know Java. Okay, so yeah, it's also part of a syllabus, so there is nothing. So you all know what a class is, right? These are just basics. I'm going to go through quickly. I'm looking to go through quickly because we need all these classes. All these, they, what do you say, form a part of our what do you say, program building and development. Like it might feel very insignificant right now, like I know this and all, but no, but we have to get into the basics because you will be defining a lot of types. Like what is a class? Can anybody, oh, y'all are not accessible to the text, so y'all have to use the mic, so anybody can tell what a class is?
It's a
Objects.
collection of functions.
Just functions?
Methods and data types.
Methods and data types. Okay, yeah, pretty close. So maybe you could frame it like this way, that when you were to put it in a very theoretical thing, that your class is like a recipe book. Okay, it'll tell you exactly what is to be done, what it'll tell you how many what is the recipe, what is a blueprint to make something. Now in my class I would say let's call it user. Okay, so what does my so this is the syntax for creating a class, um, in which you are, what do you say, going to define what exactly is the blueprint of user. So what does a user typically have? Let's say it has an ID which is of type integer. Okay, he name, of course, string name. What else? What else? Int age. What else? String password. Come on, come on. Someone keep telling me what all would you want to keep. Like if you were going to create an application and you had to take a user, what are the details you want from him? You would have an ID for sure, you would have a name, you would have an age, you would have a password. Password might seem a bit irrelevant right now, but okay, let's look at other stuff. Okay, not that I want to offend anybody, but let's say we have two genders. It's binary for right now. Okay, genders are binary, please. We So now we have four things that define what a user is. Okay, we have ID, we have name, we have age, and we have gender. So what are we going to do about this is, now whenever we initialize a user, we are going to create an object. A class is used to create objects, and these objects are what we use. So we are, in the end, when we started to use Dart, we said that this is an object-oriented programming language. So how are we going to have objects of this thing? So let's initialize these quickly. This is all what you would say non-nullable kind of things that you could define. They are nullable with I remember the syntax. Yeah, so now you can say that yeah, it can have null value, but traditionally you would want something like defining it as false, and now your program will be like, okay. So when we have these kind of things, in Java we had a constructor that always, what you would say, helped us in what do you say, mapping the parameters correctly to this. Like when you had to create an object, you would just have to enter these parameters into that object, and it would be mapped automatically because it had a constructor call automatically. But in Dart, we are going to have to be a lot more specific. So when, after having created this, in case you want to no, not in case, we are creating the class just so that it is used. So you have to use this. So how are we going to use it? First, we are going to have to define the user thing, and we are going to take parameters for this. So parameters are id string name. It can be exactly the same. Okay, it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to, what do you say, break your minds and say that no, I have to use a different variable name for each of this. It's just okay. And this is a constructor. Okay, this is the same name as the user, as the class, which is user. So we are seeing that this and this is being called. But now what is the thing we are going to be doing here is we are going to map it. So we will say this dot id equals id from this. So when we are going to be creating an object, so you will be creating an object of type user. Now this has become your blueprint. Now this is your data type. Now this, when you are going to define this, this is going to become your type of the object, and you will say it is user. And now you will be entering here your different kind of data into this. But first we have to fix the constructor in this. Okay, guys, me doing is not sufficient. I really want you all also to come do this, because you'll need to get hang of this language. It is not going to happen overnight. You definitely need to get used to all these languages and the syntax of it. It won't, one fine day you won't be able to look up and say, yeah, I'm going to start coding, and it will magically, what do you say, appear. Okay, so we have initialized a constructor. Let's give it a function. Okay, we void display. Yeah, so one of us did say that it does consist of methods. So this is one of the methods I'm displaying now. As the name suggests, It is just going to be like a pretty straightforward ID, comma. Okay, so another thing is how, if you are having a string and you are having to print one of your variables, how are you going to be doing that? So the syntax for that is like this is your ID, and then you are going to have to go dollar and say ID. Now as you can see, this is in a different color format. That means this Dart has already recognized this as a variable and not just a character of a string. So when you are going to be calling variables into the print function, you have to do it in this syntax: dollar plus the variable name. If it does get confusing that is this dollar to be printed or anything, the simplest thing to do is add brackets. So now it is more defined. Right now it's just a single variable, is not required, but yeah, you can use that way. So let's create our user. Let's give him some basic date, 20. Let his name be, I don't know, Tom. That his age, no, his ID is to be 1. His age has to be 20. And let's say it's a woman, so no, it's a guy. So let's say it's false. Okay, so now we have our user defined. So let's call something in it, which is display. So user has this function within it, and we have created an object and we are able to use the function within it because we have created the object with this instance. So this is an instance, and now let's see how this runs. This is your ID and it is rightfully saying 1, whatever we have entered here. So this is exactly what I was saying, that in your Flutter program, you will have several things like this. Like this was just user. Your other classes could be, what you would say, a class, I don't know, marks, right? And your marks will be like some 2 to 3 different things. It would include, uh, what you would say, the whole marks on its own, some pointers of yours, our CGPAs, and then your credit scores. So those are going to be of different data types at all kind of times. And maybe in between there will be, what do you say, a rating. So let's say yes, this was good, bad. We usually have a grading system between 60 to 65. You used to call it like okay, then it becomes good, very good, excellent, outstanding, distinction. We all know that kind of classification. I don't like it, but let's do it anyway. So here you can create several classes, and what is fun is, let's say that this was a user. I want you all to understand the concept of what you would say, the inheritance. Inheritance is a very important concept, which is why we specifically go to use object-oriented programming languages. So I hope you all are doing this, and also do this, because in the next session we will be using this code. So at least save it somewhere, and what do you say, don't go to create it again from scratch then, because it is easy to code and there is nothing, no big deal in this. But why waste time? Okay, code is supposed to be reused, and since you all are all going to be using your own machines, not a lab or anything, I am hoping you all preserve the code. So let's say we are creating an array of list has to be, yeah, And let's say there are languages, okay, and we are going to say that one of the languages we have is this, but imagine this, okay, let's declare this as a string as well. I have something else in mind right now, and we say language equals English, given that we have all of this. Okay, and I'm going to create a class called super user that extends user. So what this basically means is we are going to add we're going to make a class that has every functionality of a user, and the way we are going to do it like this, we have a constructor for this, we need a constructor for this too. So what we are going to need to do in this is, like, it has everything that is needed for this, but we have to use this constructor right here for whatever the initializations are required. Also, let's start with it first. What is that? That is as user zero argument constructor. Okay, yeah. So basically, that's the yeah, no issues. So just a minute. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah, extremely sorry for the interruption. Yeah, so yeah, once we have this in place, we are going to have to create a super constructor as well for the super class that we have created. It's a super user. There is something that's got to be something special about this. So we are going to have to define it. We have to say that you have to use the constructor, which is also defined for user. So now that you're saying it as a super, now see, this is initializing itself with this. You could enter some data here. Let's just see. What are the things we would need to put? I think ID. Gender. So yeah, this is something we would be adding in. Hold on, there are some errors. Each one of those, that's okay. Just a moment, time. Yes, so where were we? We were saying that in this we are going to have to extend creating something like a super user, and we need to extend everything that comes from a user. So let's get that right. And this is a constructor which we are going to be calling on this. So let's say it has got these entirety, and we are going to have to map it all according to this. Instead of having to copy, write it all down, I'd rather paste this and do the same thing right here. Actually, here we don't need the data types mentioned again. It's just with these. Yeah, so this is how you have a superconstructor which says that I'm going to infer everything from the user class. So this super is that, what do you say, function which we are using to declare certain things. Now, what is so special about an inherited class is what we have to see. There is a function we are going to be defining here which says okay, extra void foreign languages. Okay, and here we are going to be having a list of languages which were taught. Okay, so we will say that I'm from foreign, so I have to learn extra stuff like Spanish. I know already English, so German. German, Italian, and I will print this. So let's do a simple for can you print this now? So let's see. Yeah, so let's say that we are having this, so we can have this kind of extended this, and now we are going to create a super user. So super user is to be created in almost the same way as a user. Okay, so let's call him S user and give him all the data fields. Okay, next we have here as 2. Okay, Jerry, and his age would be what, 23, and true, let's say. Okay, now there is something different about a user and a super user. Like, why did we go through all this? Why did we sit through this and have to create something? As you notice, like, this has a display. Okay, this has a display function, and this has this foreign languages function, which is going to say how many foreign languages she knows. But there is something that this is not part of the user, and so something must be clicking in your mind that, okay, this has something additional, which is this thing, and since it says extends user, so it should have functionality of user, is what you would typically say. Let's see if it does though. So S user, which is different from this user, this is a different this. Okay, it should have a display function and it should work. It should not give me an issue, and it doesn't. And also I want to see how many this what does this S user also have to offer. Since it's a super user, it must be knowing some foreign languages, and it does have a foreign languages function. But if we go back here, if we just look at a normal user and we are going to try user.foreign languages, it is going to give an error. It would say that no, I'm not able to find this. So what gives this an up? When in certain widgets, certain functions, we have to use super classes, and at that moment probably you wouldn't understand why we are using this, but it does say, see, it will give you this foreign language isn't the method, foreign language isn't defined for the user, it is just for the super user. So now if you run this, it should display the details of this as well as the languages she knows. Okay, he or she, okay, whatever. Now this is your ID1, this is your ID2. So these are the basics of Dart. I don't think I'm going to go any more than this. So for those I had asked that did you all install Android Studio, I would want to know, like, what is the status on that. Okay, has anybody tried installing Android Studio? And for those who already had, it's not an issue, because then they just needed to get the Flutter development kit. Okay, maybe some people have been lazy in not wanting to install right now, but I really hope you all do, because otherwise, having sat through the session without having Android Studio, the next session would be futile, because next we will actually be using these what do you say, tools, all these tools. We are going to be needing Android Studio, we are going to be needing Flutter installed with it, and Git is not mandatory right now, but do try to keep it installed, because it is part of a developer's what you would say, arsenal. Definitely any developer, they always have a VCS, which is a virtual version control system. So this much must be pretty much it. Let me show you a quick what do you would say, how it looks like typically in a Flutter project, how it typically looks like. Uh, So you all would be having from scratch when you all install, you all will be having a home page which would look maybe it is not helping in this, but yeah, here. So this is the UI on Linux. Your Windows may not be that different. It'll just be what do you say? Something similar. And we have to click on a new Flutter project. Okay, and we don't need to do much with this. Just hit next. We're going to have to give a project a name. Let's just say demo Flutter app. And we are not part of organization, but still let's just say com gdsc so student, and we are going to have to choose the two languages we may want to build in. Swift is the famous language. See, here are the two platforms where we are able to say that yeah, you are going to be able to do a cross-platform on iOS as well as Android. And here you choose your languages which you want it to be compiled into or coded into. So we have a Kotlin file. We have chosen Kotlin for Android and Swift for iOS. We are not going to be working much with Swift since I don't have a Macintosh, so it would be pointless. It's pretty much the same, but it won't be helpful. And we are going to hit finish, and it's going to be creating a Flutter project, and that is it. So see, we have some boilerplate here already. Like you could see, it will return a material app, extends. See, this is the reason why I said that we need to get some basics in, right? What do you say, in place for all this. We can see like several stuff here. So widget is what we are going to be working with a lot. You will be hearing this a lot. You will be hearing a lot of scaffold. You will be having a lot of this. So just was going to give you an overview on how all these look, and what is the whole experience of this looking like. Now right now I have opened this on Android Studio, and it works smoothly on this as well, because fine, okay, I had probably resources for this, but if you don't, you might want to look into getting into an editor, because on its own Flutter also doesn't deny that you could not use a different editor. Like you could set up an editor. It's install VS Code. See, it itself what do you say, gives you options. Like you could use IntelliJ, you could use Emacs, and VS Code is a lightweight editor. So definitely you all should look into installing this. VS Code, I don't think is that difficult to install. You could look it up anytime. Right here, just type it and get it downloaded, get it installed. Here the extensions are different, and you just have to look into it. Exe, go ahead and install it, and it's going to look something like this. Also, yeah, it's not limited to just Flutter and Dart. It has got extensions for Python. It has got extensions for C++, as you can see on this, and it works flawlessly. In fact, the extensions may be making it a little more heavy, but you even get lighter extensions in certain cases. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be a full-fledged extension which shows you anything and everything for maybe a basic level of code. Back to where we were right now, since we already have Android Studio. So let's see how this is going to work. We are going to try and run our main function and see what does the boilerplate offer. Okay, so it's starting the development tools. Yeah, it's a cute boilerplate code that they have already given us. It just says a Flutter demo page, and it's going to be launching the main.dart. So see, anywhere and anywhere it goes, it is always looking for the main void main where it starts, and then once we write code, we import certain things, and we have this function run my app, which runs the class my app. And well, yep, should populate I'm right now. Like, this is a very simple language. Like, they already give you enough gradles and what you would say, inbuilt tools. Like here we have a package called colors package, which automatically gives you these colors already inbuilt in them. So you don't really have to go ahead and get a hex code every time. You are just building the very basic architecture of your app. You just use the default colors which are already available, go ahead with them, and what you would say, so we have built, we are going to be installing the APK. And so basically this is when you create a new project, this already appears, and this is a very basic application. This application is like a counter application. You hit the button and it is going to show you how much how many times you have clicked the button. It's taking a while. I told you these things are pretty heavy, but yeah. Here, let's see what this says. Flutter supports hot reload. Okay, so let's see what is hot reload exactly. So hot reload is a button right here, okay, and what it does is actually it rebuilds your UI right in front of you, and that is something which we like. Okay, let's just say Flutter homepage and we hit Flutter hot reload. It takes about like quick, then it syncs files, and see, it immediately shows the change. Like, how fast was that? Like, literally you have had so much trouble in using XML, the normal Android Studio, where you would have to reinstall the application all over again, and here you have a hot reload, which is like one of the most important and the most beautiful features of Flutter, where it just reloads one of this thing and shows you. Like, you could do anything with this. You could say Flutter home and again hit hot reload, and let's count the seconds. Oh, already done. That's how fast it is. And this is the boilerplate. Like, if you keep hitting this is going to say you push the button these many times. In our next session, we are going to look at how we are going to create a small minimal app which like, what do you say, displays a very basic certain things. Like, maybe we could create a user card. We are going to create a user card or a student card, ID card, let's say. Yeah, so next this I'm going to teach you all about widgets a lot. We are coming to an end of the session. Like, if you all have any doubts, let me know. It's been a while since I've had interaction. How many of you all have slept? Let's see. Those who are awake, please raise your hands. Okay, people are awake. Oh, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope they're enjoying their sleep. No, oh, everyone is awake. It's nice to see that. Okay, Aryan and Fernandez. Never mind. Yeah, sure. It's not necessary that you will have, you could keep your eyes open all the time. I get it. I myself am a student, so yeah. Um, so I hope you all understand. Like, simply change. You can try reading these comments here once you have installed. How many of you all have installed Android Studio right now? Is there anybody, or did you all already have? Like, keep your arms down and show me like who has installed Android Studio right now, or have you all kept it for later? No, those who already have, please keep your this. Who have installed right now in this session, please keep your hands up. Okay, so two of you all have installed it right now. Do you all have any difficulties? Like any installation stopped somewhere? Then okay, no difficulties either. Did you all install the three things smoothly? Okay, right now who has all the three ready? Android Studio, the Flutter SDK, as well as Git. 2, 3, 4. Okay, the rest of you all have to get your Flutter in place. Okay. Also, there is no restriction on having to do it exactly my way. I chose this way because this is something which is convenient. You all don't really need to choose to install a bundle entirely. Uh, you all could, like, but it's not necessary given that it is Windows has the system of docking, which is extremely useful later on in development phases. You are going to have different kinds of databases, so you wouldn't want to install one and have it occupy a port completely to itself. You might want some flexibility, so why not start being flexible instead of rigid? Too much rigidity, not so good. We came from a very rigid language. Now we are into what you would say, a little bit more flexible language. And I would just take your time. I'm going to clear the screen. I want you all to look at how uh, this is different. Now this is the code that is literally generating this. Okay, there is no separate design file. This is the design file, and this is how we are designing. Okay, when I'm going to be hiding this, see, this is the code that is what do you say, showing that application. Now we have to get used to this. Like, typically you would be having an XML file, and XML usually goes something like, you would say, text box, and like, y'all know this, whoever has used this would say, and then it will have certain attributes inside it. It will say ID is this, and then you used to give it an ID so that you can what you say, identify it properly. This is XML, but right now XML is, what do you say, it's in the past. Okay, we did it for like basic projects. We may have created not great application, yeah, great applications, pretty good applications with that itself. But let's move forward. Let's look into using something new, something like Flutter, where we are creating UI based out of code independently. So see, this material app, so this is what is um this material design, this material app is what made Dart's Flutter so popular, that you get to see the UI, right? Like when I ran the debugger. Hold on. Yeah. So you all look at this whole thing, right? Look at this UI. It is so clean. You have these material design buttons. You have this fonts. You have this kind of, if you are, maybe it may not be visible right now, but there is a little bit of shadow that this has come inbuilt with. And with each of these things, you can, you know, um, see like a primary color swatch is blue right now. Anything you could have a red in place, and see you get two choices of red, in fact, without having to import anything and everything. And that's the beauty. And let's see, here's where we start when we are going to be building our application. Okay, I will go into the details of this. Take your time, try reading some comments of this. I am going to explain it nevertheless. Every of this widget, how does its use? Like you can, it's pretty readable as well. You know what an app bar is, okay? Um, we know that, okay, fine, this is the app bar. uh, this is what you would say the body of it here. This from here to here, we are going to define that as the body. This is something also which is editable. Maybe you might say that this app bar is too big or too small and you might want to have a change in it. You could do that. And there is several things that you could help in that would help with this thing. Like here you could say that this title I want it in the center, and you are going to say, yeah, this is the child. Inside it, and now what is going to happen is this will center it, and let's do that. Yep, and it is also red because we changed some this here. So yeah, this is how we are going to be building our front end. So y'all will get familiar to it more and more. I will be guiding you all through the process. If y'all have any doubts, y'all could definitely ask me on the spot itself. This is called a floating action button. This is all inclusive. If any one of you all have done an Android Studio project, you all know how limited its libraries were. Like everything had to be imported from scratch, or you had to look into some fresh GitHub projects in which they had created these components which what you would say looked good. But the material design is kind of all inclusive. Maybe you might say that, yeah, there are certain things missing. Maybe a map picker may not be there, but map picker is something which is way advanced, something we would do I don't know, after building our at least 5 applications. Right now, we are going to start with just the first of our applications, and this is how the demo looks like. Once you have Flutter installed, you can play around with this a little bit. Like just I showed you, you all have already certain. You all could play with this. This is a column, create certain stuff. See, you have pushed the button this many times. It's just text, and this is how this widget works. So it's very it's rather simple to understand these things. But what may not be simple to understand is this. Then the functions which we are writing, the increment counter. Here it sets the state, all these kind of things. What's a stateful widget, etc. What's a stateless widget? We will look into all of this. So that's pretty much it for today's session. Okay, so any doubts, anybody? And you all will have to say it out loud because there is no chat access, and I will make sure that I have it ready by the next. I will have that problem fixed by next time. So any doubts, anyone? Feel free. Yeah, Sahil, hand is up. Do you have a doubt? Does anybody have any doubts? Go ahead and ask. There is no I mean, nothing to worry about. It's pretty simple till now. We haven't got into any bugs or errors or anything. So it's yeah, it is a boilerplate code. Y'all can actually just start with this. It's like already you have installed Flutter and you already have an app with you. So isn't that great? You have something to look at. Maybe this is a little complex because it involves state as well. So not maybe you may not want to go too deep and say that yeah, what is a state, what is not a state and stuff. But yep, that is pretty much it for today. Thank you so much for staying till the end and listening. Uh, Thank you guys. That is it for today. And of course, go to the at the end of the session. I want you all to give a feedback on how this session was. Be honest in it, and hope to see you all in the next session. And let's see if I could keep these sessions offline because that would be the knowledge transfer would be far easier. Uh, and I'll be able to come in touch with y'all if there is any error that, what do you say, it's difficult for me to understand. Right now we are very limited with just profile pictures and names in front of us. So yeah, thank you guys. I will be ending this meeting right now. Y'all can leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. You're a wonderful audience.